the summer of 2011, World Youth Day in Madrid, kind of at a moment in my life when I could go ahead and be a carpenter, probably get married eventually, have a family. And I can remember one particular night as I was just laying in bed on the floor of a gym, as we did at World Youth Day. I remember just maybe hearing or sensing this question: would you be willing to serve my people as a priest? I guess my time leading up to seminary and certain moments within the seminary, yes, definitely there were moments of fear where I started to doubt, more often probably, whether I was capable or whether I was worthy of this calling. I was homeschooled, which was great for me, and I was able to learn a lot and grow a lot in that way. But also, that being said, I had never been in a classroom setting. I had never had to write those kind of papers that I knew I would have to during my studies towards priesthood. I was going to be a carpenter. This is something that I had worked with my dad from a young age, helping him with carpentry. I started an apprenticeship. This was my plan for my life. There was no thoughts or no anticipation of going to university or anything like that. So it was just something entirely new for me that I needed to grapple with and come to terms with. Bringing it into prayer in a very real and open way. Just going and kneeling down and praying to God, if you want me to be a priest, if you want me to continue with this, give me the grace to do this. Help me to get through this assignment. Help me to finish this semester well. Yeah, that usually gave me some peace and some just renewed my drive to keep going. That first semester, I guess it may have been filled with a certain amount of stress or some late nights, not knowing how to go forward with certain assignments, but by God's grace, everything went pretty well, and I was able to get through it and learn a lot. What got me in the doors of the seminary in the first place was a friend of mine who invited me to attend a come and see weekend with him at the seminary. And I think that weekend helped me to realize that God calls all kinds of guys. It's not just one particular type. It's not just academics. It's not just those who have their whole spiritual life in order. God calls normal guys, and I think I can do that. I think I can take that step to go to seminary, to start my application, and to figure out if this is what God wants for me. Yeah, I did start altar serving from a young age. I was probably 8 or 9 years old, shortly after First Communion. It was usually quite a large group of altar servers, but I remember just a sense of belonging in that group. And also, I liked being up at the altar with the other servers, with the priest, right at the center of what was going on in the Mass. Having that opportunity to be close to the priest, to interact with him, to see exactly what was going on at the altar. So I think that made the priesthood a little bit more personal or real to me, even from an early age like that. Well, I was ordained in June of 2020, so that was a few months into the pandemic. Started in my first parish, and just the way things were during the pandemic, some of the restrictions on the liturgy or restrictions on the way that we could interact with the people. And I remember just a lot of people speaking to me as the new priest about what they were going through in the pandemic. Just the amount of new experiences as a priest. We go through 8 years of seminary, and nothing can really prepare us for just the day-to-day things that come up in the life of the priest. On that day, I wasn't focused on preaching. Father Mark Kramer was preaching for me at my first Mass. I suppose my biggest focus was just on getting through the Eucharistic prayer properly, getting the words right, getting everything right. Yeah, it was such a beautiful experience to be able to celebrate the Mass. Any of those moments where I get to be a witness to God's grace working in people's lives. Sometimes that's in the Mass, sometimes in confession, the bedside of someone in the hospital. One experience that I had, a longtime parishioner, she was in her mid-90s. One Saturday evening, she came to Mass. She was in her wheelchair. Her daughter brought her to Mass. She wanted to speak with me. She wanted to pray the rosary. She wanted to be at Mass. She thanked me for that evening and all of that grace that she was able to experience. And then she passed the next morning, right as we were starting the Sunday morning Mass. So I just, yeah, that was a big moment, realizing that that's how things had gone. Well, I would say to any young man discerning priesthood, if this is something that's on your heart, if it's something that you feel God might be calling you to, there's absolutely no harm in pursuing it and asking God, in prayer, with openness, with honesty, to guide you along the way. If it's public speaking, if it's academics, it's normal to be wrestling with those kind of things. It means that He's taking the call of God seriously. As I've wrestled with those things, as I've brought them to prayer, as I've learned to trust in God, I've also realized that God wants the best for us and that He'll lead us to that place where we receive the most happiness.